Hello, this is Dr. S, and we're continuing our exploration of tools. And we've been talking about in previous videos about designing tools, even simple ones. The design's a little more complex because when we design anything as an engineer, we have to be aware of what it is we're trying to solve. What are we going to do with our design? What's the purpose? And we have to evaluate it once we select a design. Remember, that was step 4. So there was 5 steps: the problem, solutions, outcomes, pick something and do it. And then that 5th step is, after we do it, we take a look and see how well we accomplished our task. So I've been kind of like going in with these videos on that step 5 part. But remember, all 5 steps of the process. You have to go through all 5 steps. So I'm going to show you some screwdrivers and a couple tape measures, and we'll continue our exploration on this, on the process and how the design works, and things you got to think about that you may not normally think about. So screwdrivers, they're screwdrivers, right? One screwdriver is the same as another screwdriver. And it really doesn't make a difference. And why are you rambling on about this, Dr. S? You're rambling on about screwdrivers. Who cares, right? You use it to drive in screws. Well, yeah, that's their purpose, but no two screwdrivers are made exactly the same. And so this becomes a challenge. This becomes an interesting part because, again, you want something that's user-friendly. You want something that's going to get the job done. So I've got 4 different designs of screwdrivers. So this one is very common. You'll see this. A lot of screwdrivers have this design. So this is just a typical Stanley. You'll have different heads. So you'll have a Phillips head. This is a small Phillips. You'll have a large Phillips. And then you'll have the 2 flats, small and large. And this one's got a medium shaft. You'll see long shaft screwdrivers, and you'll see ones with little short shafts. So you'll have a short one, a medium one, and a long one. And they each have different purposes. They each have different value. And that's why people will have multiple different screwdrivers. They'll have different shafts. They'll have different heads on them because different purposes. So I'm not really going to get into right now about that part of it. I'm going to get more into the design of the handles because this becomes important. So this is a common design. It's plastic. It's almost got this like star appearance to it on there. And this is very common. And the idea is you grab it like this and then you torque. You torque your screwdriver. And so you just grab it around there, and your these little ribs here are what you hold on to. So this is a very, very, very common design for a screwdriver. And you go, okay, what's wrong with that? Well, this little dude, it's okay, but after a while it becomes very, very uncomfortable to use. Because when you're trying to torque, these ribs dig into your hand, and that doesn't feel very good. And just because of the size of it and the shape, you're twisting, twist, and you're twisting your wrist. Well, if you suffer from anything like carpal tunnel, that gets painful very quickly. So these guys are good if I don't have a lot of heavy duty driving to do. If it's pretty light duty stuff and it's just your typical. And I'm going to set this tool down for 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes between uses. This is an acceptable tool. It will do the job. Issues that you'll have with some of these, especially these cheaper ones, especially on the Phillips, these will start to strip over time, this head. And once that starts to strip, you have to throw it out. You can't use it anymore. So the less expensive ones, so a typical screwdriver, you're talking $5, $6, $7. For a less expensive one, a more elaborate, expensive one, you may be talking $15 to $20 a screwdriver. So they can get expensive very fast on there. But again, it's going to be how much are you going to use it? What are you using it for? Is it more heavy duty? So if I'm doing a lot of really heavy screwdriving, I've got big lag screws, for example, and then I'm screwing into a wall. These lighter duty ones just aren't going to work. They're not going to work very well. And the other issue is you get real sore right here in the wrist. Your wrist starts to hurt. So if you do too much of these, your wrist will you'll actually feel it in your wrist. If you suffer from anything like carpal, like I do, this becomes very, very painful. And you get to the point you cannot use it because you can't move your wrist because of the pain. You can't take any pressure in your wrist. So I end up having to switch hands a lot. The carpal issue becomes a lot worse for the left-handed person than the right-handed person, because the left-handed person, remember, it's righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, so when I'm tightening, I'm going this direction, and how's my wrist going? It's going to the inside. Hurry, please hurry, because we're getting tired. Right-handed, see, when I'm twisting this, it's a little bit different twisting motion on the wrist. So on the left hand, I'm twisting this way. In the right hand, I'm kind of twisting the opposite direction. So I'm twisting in on my left hand, I'm twisting out on my right hand. So driving in isn't going to be as much of a problem for the right-handed person as the left-handed person due to the twisting motion. Now on these, the way I have to hold it, they're kind of small on diameter, so that twist becomes more pronounced. So we have to be concerned about that on the twist. So here's a second version of this. Same company, actually, but it's a little bit different. It's more rounded. It doesn't have those ribs. It's more rubberized. A little bit easier on the hand. I still have the same problem being left-handed. There's nothing you can do about that on there. But again, it's that twisting motion on here, and it's kind of small. So part of the problem with these is just the size of the handle. It's kind of small, so you get more twist when you twist. So here's a couple with bigger handles and they're a little bit different shape. So this handle is actually triangular, which is kind of cool. So it's a cool shaped handle. It's rubber too. See, look at that. It's this nice rubber handle. Doesn't have those ribs. It's a rubber handle. It's a little bit bigger. So when I turn, I don't have to twist as much to drive that screw in. I'm getting better torque on it. And that's, you know, a really important thing. Now this dude is plastic, so it's pretty lightweight. This guy here has different types of bits that you can put in different heads. Advantage of that is I can use one screwdriver instead of 6 different ones, so it minimizes the amount of screws. Several huge disadvantages. I hate this screwdriver, by the way. Cannot stand it. I use it because I have to when I need a screwdriver. It is not my screwdriver of choice. And I'll tell you why. Well, first of all, sometimes these little bits come out. So you're tightening away and the bit falls out. And that's a really frustrating thing, especially if you're working in really confined spaces. When your bit falls out and then you lose your bit, that becomes a real issue. Another thing, these bits, a lot of times, they're just not of the best material. So again, these dudes will want to strip out on you, and that's also not cool. A big issue, especially for left-handed people, is this cap screws off like that. Okay? So, remember, I'm left-handed. So, when I'm turning, I'm actually twisting this off by accident. So here's my hand around there, so I'm turning, right? So I'm turning to tighten. My pinky, as I turn to tighten, is actually on this. And so I will actually loosen this end as I turn, and all my bits come out. So on this one, for example, I started with 6 bits. I've got 3 that I've got in there, and I've got 1. I've lost 2 bits along the way. And so that becomes a real source of irritation when you lose your bits, or you've got this upside down, for example, and this thing unscrews and your bits go falling out. It seemed like a really cool screwdriver when I bought it. I'm like, this is a really, really cool screwdriver because I like the design of the handle. You know, this triangular handle. It's a comfortable handle, but that part of it is a drawback. This is my favorite screwdriver that I own. This is the coolest screwdriver I've ever bought. I really like it. It's got a square handle. So it's got a square handle and it's got little grooves in here, so they've rounded the edges. So if you're sweating or things, it doesn't slide out. I can get a really, really, really great grip on this. It's wide enough. It's very comfortable in my hand. I get a lot of torque power, and this has got several different bits on there. So I can switch on that one. I can switch this one around, and I got these bits. And these bits here fit in really well. See, the other bits just slid in. If you notice, the other bits slid in. These bits have a little ball on them. See that little ball? And that keeps the bit in place. So it's actually a little spring action. So that pushes in, it wants to push out. It's a compression spring. Compression spring. So it pushes it back out. So when I pop that in its little slot there in the socket, it holds it in place. As opposed to this one, where it doesn't. See, there's no compression spring on this one at all. So these one, the bit tends to fall out. This one, it doesn't. So this is like wickedly cool on how it works because the bit. It's a great design. It's comfortable. This is a screwdriver I can use and I don't feel it, being left-handed, with my carpal tunnel. So the final two things I'm going to look at in this video are tape measures. And no two tape measures are exactly the same on there. So this is a Stanley Power Lock. This is a Pittsburgh. And one of the things you want to look at is how easy it is to lock. You know, that thing, pretty easy to lock. This is very light. Little one, it clips. It's got a little clip, so I can clip it to my belt, which is pretty neat to be able to do that. Most of them do come with clips. This is a clip. This is a little heavier tape measure. There's my locking mechanism, so it locks pretty well. Of these two, I consider the Stanley actually to be the superior, and my rationale for that is reading the numbers. So on this one, I've got the set of numbers that's the inches, and that's okay. So we'll stretch it out to a foot. So it's got like 1 foot 13 inches. So in right it says foot, and then how many inches, and that's okay. So it's 1 foot 1 inch, 1 foot 2 inches, 1 foot 3 inches. So I've got two different numbering systems on here. So I've got feet and inches, and then I just got inches. And that's a neat little thing because it makes it easy to compare. What is really frustrating about this tape measure is they actually numbered all the eighths down here, and it makes it very, very, very hard to read. It's too busy. It's too much. I can't read all that. It's just too much to comprehend. So this guy here has really good spring loading. It works well. Here is the Stanley. So the Stanley, the locking mechanism doesn't work quite as well as the Pittsburgh. As you can see, I'm having trouble keeping that locked. It didn't want to lock very well. So the Pittsburgh, the lock is real easy. Just slide it with the finger and it locks up and down. No problem at all. The Stanley was a little bit, more challenging. You can see I actually have to put some effort here to get this dude to lock. So it's a little bit more challenging on the lock. The thing I like about the Stanley is I think it's a lot easier to read on the tape itself. So again, it's got your feet in inches. So here's your feet in inches. I like the fact it shows the 16 inches and highlights it because that's what your studs are at. in a house, their studs are 16 inches apart. So that's really good for a stud finder, that I immediately know where 16 inches is, and I don't even have to think about it on there. And see, they go to here to 32, for example. So I know this is one stud, that's two studs. So that makes it really easy. And they don't clog up this bottom part of the tape itself with all those fractions. So, yeah, you have to have a skill on this one to be able to read it. You have to know how to read a tape measure. But it's easier to read because you don't have as much, it's not as busy on there. So even something like tape measures, you'll have some differences on there on how these things are. So the Pittsburgh also highlights the studs in red, but they don't jump out at you like the Stanley. So the Stanley, I think, is a little bit easier to read. The Pittsburgh is a lot easier to maneuver. It's a lighter tape. It's got this nice rubber on it. This is square. This is round, so it fits in my hand a lot better. Just a nice tape. I just don't like at all how it's numbered on there. It's just too busy. I find this really hard to read. So even though this is the better in terms of handling, I prefer this one because I can read the numbers better. And when I'm making measurements, and especially if I don't have a lot of time, I'm in a tight place and I got to get things done quickly, I need to get my numbers fast. I don't want to spend a lot of time trying to figure out what it says. And if I don't have to use my glasses, that helps too. So that's a quick overview on something simple like tape measures that we have. So I appreciate you staying with me for this part in this segment, and hope you'll join me on future segments. So bye now.